I can hear you, Pramod.
Okay. Namaste, namaste. Namaste, Vivek
नमस्ते जी,
ji.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते। कैसे हैं आप लोग?
बस बढ़िया.
Mani sir, wonderful. Man, I read most of it, half of it actually. I got it late, the book. Very beautifully written. I love the style. I love the
You see,
styling.
thank you very much, Ganesha Icha. He is my favorite god.
Yeah,
So I always say Ganesha Icha. And there is a
That-
story about how it started.
yeah.
I
That
was
is
in
one time.
Pakistan. I was in Pakistan. Every word they will say, Inshallah.
Ah, okay. Got it. Beautiful.
Fourth or fifth time, I replied saying that Ganesha Icha. They have no objection, but our own officers from the High Commission had an objection. He wrote. When I said Ganesha Icha, nobody from Pakistani delegation protested. But our own embassy officers wrote back to the government saying that your officer had. This is a very peculiar country, and they have affected hurt the sentiments of the Pakistani diplomat. There no such wisdom.
There's very few times in your lifetime I think you showed favoritism. At least to a god you can show some favoritism, Mani sir.
Sure. It is not a favoritism. Basically, it is not a favoritism. Somehow I feel very happy about this.
Yes. The terminologies and the language we have used, even in international diplomacy, has been slowly changing. The past at least 10-15 years, I've noticed that the reluctance of using Jai Hind, even Jai Shri Ram, in a very informal way, even if it doesn't have to say it in a very boisterous way.
This has triggered a lot of officers who were supporting me started using Hari Icha. Somebody uses Durga Icha. And not only that, among my friends also, somebody says Hari Icha, Ram Icha, Vishnu Icha, whatever it is. I said, use your favorite God. When for every sentence they say Inshallah, or if a Christian says God willing, we should say Ganesha Icha, Shiva Icha.
Oh yeah.
Rati Hegde, you must have heard.
Oh yeah.
He uses the word Shiva Icha.
Shiva Icha. Shiva Icha. Shiva Icha.
So many people have changed themselves.
Okay. So we can start, I think. I will just do a brief introduction, and then we will have like an interactive session. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about Kalyan and Kalyan's tryst with destiny, and go from there. Okay, we'll keep it as casual as possible. Okay. So namaste and welcome to everybody. Happy Independence Day to Vivek ji, RUS Mani ji. It is exciting that a country that was supposed to totter and shiver and beg and forget their past has now still survived. It is thriving. It is able to hold its head high in the Committee of Nations and is able to talk about certain issues that we were supposed to be non-aligned and not talk about these issues. So congratulations to Vivek ji, RVS Mani ji, the outspoken leaders of India, I should say, who have heralded this change of being able to talk confidently about India, our past and our future. Happy Independence Day to both of you guys.
Thank you very much. Same to you.
Aapko bhi, Pramod ji.
Thank you. So let us talk about real independence of India. I'll do a starter. Okay. Now this is political independence of India, and it's good that we are makers of our own destiny. We vote and we campaign, and we are making our own mark in several different facets of industry. But do we really have spiritual independence? Do we really have independence to express ourselves fully, Vivek ji?
See, honestly, I'll tell you about my felt thought. I won't intellectualize it. Felt thought is something which you have felt and then you have come to a conclusion, you know, that's a felt thought. My felt thought is that when you say a nation or a society or a civilization, whatever you want to call, I'm not getting into the jargon. When you say that, you say India, Bharat, which I like to call it Bharat or India for international people. What does it mean? What is sovereignty? What is a republic? Who's answerable for India? If somebody questions something about India, hey, India, what's your history? What's your civilization? Who are you? What makes India or Bharat? Who's answerable? We found, yes, freedom from the British rule, but are we independent? Do we know that which is that group which is answerable? For me, anybody who thinks he's answerable for India is Bharatiya. Now that you know, you can easily identify who are these people, but they are not empowered. They are not empowered. And that is what my concept of a Hindu Rashtra is. Hindu Rashtra. Hindus, anybody who's answerable for Bharat is a Hindu. Doesn't matter whether you are a Muslim or a Christian or a Sanatani or a Jain or Sikh, whoever you are, doesn't matter. You can be an atheist, but if you are answerable for Bharat, you are Hindu, आप हिंदुस्तान के. वो जो एक mental freedom होती है, independence, that we have not achieved. Like in Germany, you go, all Germans, yes, we are Germans because we are answerable. Even Indians who take the citizenship of US, Pramodji can vouch for it, you cannot even imagine they can work against America.
That's true.
No way, no way.
Yeah.
But in India, people who live in India, you can definitely doubt their intentions. You know, in a crisis, they won't stand up for you. If they are not going to stand up for you, then they definitely are, you know, working against the cause of it. This is my problem, that India has not found freedom from a corrupt mindset.
Well, you started it off very well, but for the uninitiated, Vivek ji is a dear friend. He's an acclaimed film director. Those who have not heard about him are probably sitting in a cave somewhere. His films, I've really personally enjoyed the way he tries to present the narrative in a very subtle format. Tashkent Files was a seminal game changer. Buddha in a traffic jam. And I'm hopeful that the Kashmir Files, the upcoming one, is going to be a spectacular one as well. But at the same time, let me ask you this question and kind of set the cat amongst pigeons here. This narrative battle is an uphill climb. It's a steep climb. It's almost like 1,000-foot vertical cliff, right? What keeps you going? I mean, do you really get happy at the end of the day going to bed that you made a small contribution in this yajna, or what keeps you asleep even for like a few hours a day or night rather?
So at a very personal level, you know, I was not bothered about narratives and all those kind of things, you know. In fact, I was part of some other narrative. But then I realized that earlier I didn't have the same tools with me to make a point. You know, earlier to add on to the narrative or to strengthen or enhance the narrative, one had to either get a book published, and there were only Penguin and HarperCollins, 4 or 5 all leftist, liberal mindset kind of publishing houses. Film industry was entirely leftist. So either you become a journalist. I couldn't have done that. As a filmmaker, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized when the digitalization of the world happened, when the globalization of the world happened, I realized now the fight is not left or right. It's globalization versus your national integrity and your national heritage. You know, otherwise these globalized people will fill you in with Coca-Cola and McDonald's and all American values in such a way that brother and sister won't even know what Raksha Bandhan is after some time. So I said, let's use their own the space of digital and fill the universe, my universe, which is close to me, which are my people who want to listen to me, fill that with such positive greatness and strengths of Indian culture and civilization, correct the narratives, bring the facts in, tell them the nuances of our culture and not see it in binary black and white, you know. That's the only thing I'm doing. When I started fighting this narrative war with my films and my books, slowly I started finding lots and lots of people who could also speak through me. So more or less, I just keep giving them a platform and a voice. And I think we need millions and millions of young boys and girls like that. What Mani sir has done with his book Hindu Terror is lying on top. Actually, coincidentally,
Absolutely.
when I is lying on top of a pool of books, which are my favorite books. And whenever
Yeah.
somebody comes to my office, I show them this book. So he's also doing that way. So this is important that people create products and fill the digital world, the algorithm world with great narrative about Bharat.
You know what's funny? You are a man on the outside, Vivek ji, who knew the inside. Maniji was a man on the inside who knew the outside. Isn't this funny that we really talking about the same thing? जो आप urban nexals की बात आपने छेड़ी, you were the one who introduced the terminology in the milieu, and now it's become part of folklore now. We'll come to that later, but I want to stick to the timelines, and I want to be focused on the book that we are about to discuss and unveil and talk about the meat of the whole thing. I'm not a meat eater, by the way, but I just use that term. See, it came so very quickly to me that Maniji has to invent a term again for substituting that meat with something else, hopefully something sattvic. But we'll come to that. Vivek ji, Kashmir Files is your upcoming project. Can you just kind of give us a sneak peek of what it is about? Is it about the history of Kashmir? Is it about the exoduses that has happened? Is it all tied into what's happening today in Kashmir? So can you just kind of give a spectrum?
Okay, so my film is focused only on the genocide of 1990. And actually, what happened when I started working on this film, I didn't know that I will end up making genocide film. But when I started working on Kashmir per se, about Kashmir Pandits, their pain, their agony, their suffering and struggle, and now success also. So when I started looking at the documents, whatever I could find, I realized there is no documentation of the victims' testimonies. It was, in my mind, I treated it like a war crime. And I said, whenever there is a genocide or anything, you have to have the victims, people who come and say, my father was killed, or my sister was raped, or this happened, my house was looted or burnt. You have to have their testimony. So we had nothing like that. So I said, okay, let's take this job. And we traveled all over India and all over the world. We went to US, UK, South Africa, Germany. And from all these places, we got the first generation victims. It took us a lot of time to chase them, Girija Devi's son, he was 3 hours away from Chicago. I found him from somewhere. So all these people, we just put the camera uninterrupted, nothing, a simple, their testimony like war crimes are recorded on camera. So hours and hours of footage we got. Then we looked at the footage. Then we corroborated with books. Then we corroborated with government records, whatever is available. Then the internet thing, Google stuff. Like that, we put this one story and a beautiful film together. We have finished shooting it. And it's almost ready. We are just waiting for theaters to open up. And then we will release it. And we'll do a world tour with that film.
Well, I look forward to
I'll
it.
See you in Houston. I'll see you in Houston.
Very soon. And let's segue that from Kashmir to the problems that modern day Indians faced, at least looked on live TV, because those were undocumented. This is the era of pre-cable television that you dealt with. But when you're looking at live TV, the internet generation, the problem just has gotten amplified. And no one better than Mani sir, as I call him. He is a retired chief. Of course, he was a bureaucrat with the central government. He was with the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the travails and the testament to the work that he put in and the background is slowly getting unveiled and revealed in parts and parts. Hopefully, one day we'll have a series of books on the entire journey. But the first book, the myth of the Hindu terror and the whole facade that was created in trying to equate the on one side of the story where terrorism was clear, apparent, it was visible, to whatever else was supposedly happening, and to try to put two communities in direct conflict with each other because of somebody's fixed narrative, was something Mani sir was dealing with in a very bureaucratic fashion. So without much ado, Mani sir, what are your general thoughts on the general global narrative? So I'm going to bring you in directly from Kashmir to Afghanistan a little bit, kind of with the current affairs, what you're observing. And then we'll segue into your books, both of them. And eventually, of course, I want Vivek ji to open up the larger discussion and have you talk about the current book, which is The Deception. So what are your thoughts on what's happening in Afghanistan, and what were your, observations?
Basically, I cannot say about the world politics, but the Indian political narrative has been in a denial mode about the root cause of terrorism and militancy emanating from a particular ethnic group. Take it to Kosovo, take it to events before that. Palestine problem is still there because a person is, a particular ethnic group is agitated, and it has traveled through all those places. Added to them, if you see that 1970s up to 1970s, they were more liberal in their thought, but once they sensed the power of petrol, the power of oil, this has triggered the global narrative into receding. The retrograde steps have happened, whether it is, call it Taliban. Taliban is a new term, whether you call it Talibanization or you call it ISIS groups holding people to ransom, the women's rights, which were much better in Iran or Iraq in 70s than what it is now, or even in the other places, including Afghanistan. The progress has gone into a retarding mode, and that is the reason. And ISIS or a Taliban control over this, they are setting a narrative with this. Western Asia is also a fact of the fact that the other parts of the world are continuing to be in a denial mode. They do not want to link any terror or any violence or any group violence or genocides and all to any particular ethnic group, which is putting the cart before the horse and asking it to be driven. So we need to, I have nothing against any ethnic group. I am a Sanatani, I follow Sanatana Dharma, which is eternal order in real sense. And this is also infiltrated into your history. I have told in many of your own channels, US channels and all, that itihasa means that did happen. That is history. But that is, the entire narrative has got set into that. Itihasa has become mitihasa, which is a falsehood which is proposed. So the denial mode is getting perpetuated, and until and unless we catch the bull by the horns, this type of disturbed world, the challenges to the world peace will continue and get exaggerated, get escalated. That is my simple solution.
Absolutely, and I'll have Vivek ji take over from here. But isn't the denial the shell that covers the deception? Isn't the deception something that comes after denial happens, or which one comes first? Vivek ji, I'd like you to segue into this deception book, because it's all interconnected, isn't it? This is a huge global nexus. You talked about it. Rajiv Malhotra has talked about it. But when will the truth come out that there is a linchpin here, the whole concept of trying to keep people away from truth? Till when will this happen?
See, in fact, the Tashkent files which you mentioned, the whole theme was right to truth. And my theory was that in democracy, especially in our democracy, we have all kinds of fundamental rights, but there's no right to truth. And that's why you never get to know the truth. And why? Because if you see this entire control politics, which the colonials did, the tyrants used to do, invaders used to do, then these people were doing, and now the so-called communists, I say the fight is not between anything. It fight is between actually communism and everybody else. Like in a very faith religious way, everybody says that it's between Islam and rest of the world. But in my eyes, it's also communism versus rest of the world.
Mhm.
You know, and the entire, these two, I mean, I shouldn't be saying it. I don't know. A lot of people are watching live. I don't know it's politically correct or not, diplomatic or not, but I'll try to say it in as nicer way to say it. The problem is that the whole concept of Islam is based on sin and punishment theory. You know, it is based on not telling the truth. When you don't, like a child, yeah, right. Okay, I found the analogy. If when a child asks you tough question, you don't want to tell the truth. What you do, you deceive the child by giving him some kind of, don't go to the room, it's dark, there must be a ghost over there. Which means if you go there, the ghost is going to punish you, it's going to eat you up. So for all your life, you are blocked. You can't think beyond. And people who are very limited in their knowledge, which have very narrow understanding of the Brahman, we talk about Brahman, the world view, we even have talked about life after death and then life and the whole cycle of life. The whole world looks at the time as a linear thing. We look at it as a cyclical thing. Science has also proved it's cyclical thing. But here, if you think Earth is flat, Earth is flat. Period. Yeah. It's a diktat. Similarly, in communism, it's a diktat. Simple. Period. They also worship Marx like people worship Allah. So these two, in my mind, these two things. And sadly, today I am willing to pardon even communists because they also have some brilliant artists and singers and performers. They have something. But the other side, you have no art, no literature, nothing. In modern Islam, if you see. The problem is these two have collaborated. They have created kind of a nexus and a gang, you know. And the money is also with them. They call themselves socialists, but they are the biggest capitalists with millions and trillions of money with them. This Islamic world, they have collaborated. And that has become a very big danger. And that's where the game of deception is played. Because they don't want their people to know the truth.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody Earth is not flat, that guy is not going to believe the authority anymore. If you say Marx is bullshitting, then, you know, so that's why they have to cover up. And strategically, the world has witnessed these people are very smart. They use women and children as the shield.
Oh, yeah.
They use human rights as the shield. You know, they use all this compassion, empathy, these things, the world climate. You can't control world climate. You are fooling the people. World climate has to be controlled by the policies. You know, so all these kind of things, but it's Mani sir's domain about deception. But I think, yes, there is a denial comes later. Denial is a strategy. Denial is an intellectual strategy. You deny, then gaslighting is another strategy. Whitewashing is another strategy. Then telling the lie so many times, then ultimately you can't even question it. All these are tactics they use. But the first thing is the intention, the objective is deception. From there it begins.
But the truth somehow still comes out, right? I was very interestingly reading the last page just before this thing, and it says, Om Tat Sat, that is the truth. And a very interesting way in which the whole narration happened. Hopefully it gets to be made into a movie of some kind, because it has all of these bureaucratic things that we see in movies as this, steps that we feel sometimes, outsiders feel that this is too much red tape, there's too much processes, but really the processes are meant to be checks and balances, right? And as the protagonist keeps repeating, Kalyan, the main hero of the story is Kalyan, right? Kalyan keeps going after process. He's like, this is the process, let's do this, let's still get the job done, but there is something that we have to file and go get that done. So Maniji, who is this guy Kalyan inspired by the Insider of P.V. Narasimha Rao? Remember, P.V. Narasimha Rao ji also wrote a book called Insider, right? In which he has this character, I forget the name of that guy, that guy and this Kalyan are so eerily similar. You should probably, think they're twins or something. PV Narasimha Rao's Insider was essentially his account of what happened during his tenure, 5 years. And Kalyan almost looks like PV Narasimha Rao, like some guy who's already inside. So what made you come up with this guy?
Inside, basically, I'll tell you that there are many Kalyans in different pockets, unrelated to each other. They don't know even each other. PV Narasimha Rao might have been a Kalyan, and many people are not even aware of the existence of that Kalyan.
Yeah.
But here also, at every stage, every place, even if the beginning of the book, before any security narrative takes off, there also, to give a proper institutional structure to another place where he was posted, he faced an issue. Whether you call it the might of the IAS or might of the tyranny of seniority or protocol or whatever it is, the truth got lost. And that is how the deception takes place. That is how they obfuscate the truth. They take the truth away from the public eyes, public knowledge. These the very, very tools which are set up to ensure that truths get recorded in the institutional memory are used to, or along with that, the other types of pre-existent frameworks are used to kill that very objective. The idea is not about X did it or Y did it. The idea is about how the existing systems itself get abused to subvert the truth. That is also one of the beginning narrative of the...
You know what you have done? Whether you like it or not, you created this Tom Clancy type of character. Right. Jack Ryan is this guy's name. Several movies have been made on him. He's this typical nonchalant family man guy who's gone into bureaucracy, works at the State Department, then he gets elevated to go work for the Central Intelligence Agency, then eventually he becomes the president, and it's a fictional character, but people still believe that there is a Jack Ryan. Tom Cruise acted as Jack Ryan. It's the narrative. See, the subtle narrative, like people like Vivekji might be ending up creating a Kalyan into a hero who has multiple avatars, right? But these are based off of real instances. These are things that happened. But you still have to create a narrative around the character of how he fought against overwhelming odds and still protected whatever.
But this is a work of fiction.
Yeah.
Indeed, it needs the purpose of why it was made a fiction was the truth need to be told in detail.
Yeah.
Every detail that somebody, a person totally committed to the cause of the nation or cause of righteousness, puts his life at stake.
Yeah.
Basically, you don't, even his body would not have been made available to his family had that fellow been caught in a particular mission. And another truth about this is how an embarrassment to the sitting Prime Minister of India could have been averted, had to be averted, and that has been preempted. So like that, these are all maybe it has happened, but it needs to be told.
You see, I'm gonna put this up here. Here, there's three central characters who are, very eerily similar to the people that we have known, right? There's a sitting prime minister. There's a sitting de facto prime minister. There was characters that were really in the political milieu of the day who decided that their whole facade of sustaining their political journey was to create a bogeyman that never existed. They created this whole structure called Hindu terror, right? They started amplifying it. They had willing partners and collaborators from outside, which are Vivekji, what you were saying earlier, right? Once you start getting that into the psyche of people start thinking that, ye bhi ho sakta hai. Acha, Taliban ne ye kiya, to yahan pe bhi ye to ho raha hai, right? That false equivalence, very smartly they try to bring in. And then they will say that, oh, yes, yeah, but kam se kam law and order chal raha hai na, unke liye. See, the way in which slowly they try to make you feel alienated with what is the actual crux of the story. But in Deception, what I really liked is that there are willing allies. It's not all bad. It's not that everybody was willingly collaborating or anything. There was resistance everywhere, isn't it, Maniji? Even in this whole storyline, there's unsung heroes everywhere that you can't mention, and there's people are still there in active duty protecting the interests of India, right?
Right.
So how do you try to bring more sanctity to their work? Do you continue writing more parts to this book? Do you want to make this into a series of exposés eventually? Because you are one of the first whistleblowers who ever came out in 2009, and you paid a heavy price for it. Is there incentive for a whistleblower to come out?
Not in the present dispensation.
Yeah.
Indeed, I intend to take it forward, like how a group can take over the land, how the group can, so many other instances of there. So like that, there are events everywhere which had to be resisted and which has to be stood up against. So I will bring out a couple of more sequel to this work. But what is more important, all the people who have, you said, unidentified heroes fighting for the country, most disturbing was that what we had seen in Sikh militancy. I have mentioned about it, like Kalyan's father telling it about to him, to Kalyan, narrating it about it to the Kalyan, that 71 war was mostly won by the Sikh commanders. And thereafter, how the dynasty with the premier of a neighboring country, a hostile country, although we call it friendly neighboring country, but it is a hostile country. How they ensured that Sikhs get demonized as militants, the Damdamai Taksal or anything like that. And also, there is a seed of migration from outside the country is seeded into the Sikh psyche. So what happened from 70s onwards, you can see that also has a mention in this. It's a very, because they have now been demonized. The Khalistan issue is a current issue. It's a challenge. We are facing it. Whether it has got links with the present farmer strike or not is a different story. But we are facing it all the same. And they have been facing it. The challenge has been faced since last 20 years or 30 years. Even in 2009 in USA and Canada, these movements were there. The disaffection has happened. The disaffection could have happened had the other community which was sought to be demonized had also been demonized, trying to save the real perpetrators. And all because of the attempt of a particular dynasty to be staying in power. So that is what is disturbing me, and that is why there are many people in the system who are now slowly coming up and standing up against this. I don't say majority because a lot of people are more pliable. A whole ecosystem has been created in the world, but some people do have the back spine and the morals, and they do try to attempt these things. Some may be retired, some may be still working, but there are people with spine, both values and spine, both. That is what is most important.
I'll come to question and answers. We have tons of them. We'll select some of them and post them on their behalf. Vivekji, after going through the book, I know you still have to complete it. What were the things that stood out? What was in the journey of Kalyan that you could also identify with, and you want to ask the question to Maniji in what you were experiencing with Kashmir Files and what he was experiencing documenting this, spectacular confessional book?
Actually, I wanted to ask him a question, and I thought once, what comes out in your book is that that the government in power was colluding with ISI to kill Indian Muslims, only to blame it on Hindus and plant a narrative of a fake Hindu terror. Now, this is a very serious allegation, and this is one of the boldest things which one can write about. Can you just elaborate on this? And it requires a lot of courage.
I will
require
tell
a lot
you
of
one.
courage to say.
Now let's take the Mumbai attack 26/11.
Yeah.
I will not take any other, but this is the most prominent one, most bloodiest attack during that period. 10 terrorists land on the coast, 5 kilometers away from the coast, abandon the lifeboat, swim across and all. Simple thing is, with arms and ammunitions, clothes wet, they walk through a kolivada, a fisherman's colony, at around 7:15 or 7:30 in the evening. Let us assume. Fisherman's colony is generally in the celebratory mode in the evening. That is their culture. And another thing is, all of them will be in their outside, that what they call it, a Veda or whatever it is. And they do not allow intruders to enter into their colony. They are very possessive. Now, if 10 people with arms, communication equipment, ammunition, everything are walking through the colony, none of the fellows ask them a question. No. And they come to Badwar Park at around 7:30, 7:40, and they get a transport. In 2008, when even this Uber and this, what is the
Ola cabs. Ola
were not there, was it possible at 7:30 in the evening to get a Kali Pili taxi or a Meru or whatever it is at 7:30? A very basic question. There was an inside hand. There were many inside hands, including somebody paying them money, Indian money. Otherwise, how did they reach the exact destinations? And even those days, the GPS was also not so advanced to give the precise destination. So there would have been a person who would have navigated it for them. So there were these type of few questions which needs answer. However, this has not been covered in the book, but it may come in the next book. But I have told about this in my Myth of Hindu Terror. The Honorable Home Minister comes out and says that Kasab confers to getting help from Indian hands, but the interrogation did not find any merit, which is not believable. These are all simple questions. Now, number two. On 30th December 2008, somebody suffers a very big mishap. The protagonist is thought to be kidnapped and traded off for Kasab. And that thereafter, 7th January, that is a botched attempt. Till that time, the ISI was denying that the Kasab was their citizen. It is only on 6th or 7th January 2009 that they have accepted that Kasab is their national. So this needs to be told. There are several such coincidences which you can find out, and same is the case with Samjauta blast. A particular, we had shared, including the exact position where the terrorists were hiding. Everything was shared, but nothing happened. And later on, a Hindu was framed in that, and he got acquitted in the year 2019. Makkah Masjid. Makkah Masjid, maximum Muslims are there. Whatever function was there, in Namaz time, the blast happened. Who was framed, and they were later on acquitted, in spite of the fact that there were clear. So every terror attack, there was a background, whether it is the district courts also, so many people, and the blame was always rested with the Hindus. And most of the victims, even in those, the Makkah Masjid or Gokul Chart or 26 Samjauta blast, Samjautas, all of them were Muslims. Makkah Masjid, all of them were Muslims. So this is how they were killing the Indian Muslims. Blame was charge sheeting the Indian Hindus. But ultimately they got the accelerated, they got discharged, the charge sheet got discharged, acquitted. The real culprits escaped back to Pakistan. And not only that, if you go to the replies to parliament questions of those days, It was very clearly mentioned in none of the cases. It was said there were Hindu organizations. It always used to be said Pak-based POK Pak-based sponsored ISI groups are perpetuating terrorism in India. And in Parliament question, nobody lies.
Yes, because
so there are so many dots like that. There are so many dots like that. You can corroborate it. The party in power.
What is very interesting in the book, in Deception, is you really mention the process in which the replies to Parliament is actually tabled, right?
Right.
There's so much. You generally assume that there's no protocol and the minister has a written statement given to him by a political secretary or somebody, right? But then in this book, that is what is very interesting. I was talking to Anand Srivastavji earlier, that is itself is a spectacular way of describing how the backroom process works before it is handed to a minister so he can reply to a question in the parliament, which means there should be so much coordination, right? And this Kalyan is a jack of all trades. He's collaborating and getting information and making sure that at the time the information is passed on to the minister, it's accurate. He has so many agencies to collaborate. And then in spite of all the pressure from Rastogi, I mean, Rastogi is an upright and nice person, right? But still, Rastogi is his own person. Kalyan still has to maintain his sanctity, follow the process. That's a spectacular testament to how honest officers could possibly be working even today. So I want to also briefly extract from these different bomb blasts and these issues that were happening during that time, 2006 to all the way to 2013. What was at the end of the day, it was all pointing to Pakistan, right? It was very clear that and they were proudly saying that they were sponsoring all of this also. But at the end of the day, did you see the kind of validation that come from political authorities after 2014 that you were the ones, the great unsung heroes were the ones that enabled that prevention, because after 2014, you haven't seen as many, right? Then there's lot of political claimants to the lull in the terrorism that has happened, right? Do you see some validation? Do you see some sort of, hurrah moment that, okay, at least some of the things you guys put in place resulted in this lull?
So basically, we did not put much in place, except we were filing affidavits. The systems were already there. The preventive strengths were there. Capabilities were there. I will give you the example of this attempted infiltration through the sea route on the 31st of December 2014. There was an attempted sea route. You can check from the papers. It came on 2nd January 2015. Same pattern, a Bombay type attack was attempted. But it was preempted by Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard. It was stopped, it did not happen. So the capabilities were never under question. The intelligence capabilities was never under question. But the question was, go ahead, or stopping not using the capabilities. Recently also, even after that, there have been several consignments have been stopped on the sea route, in the Indian waters from far away from Mumbai. The present initiatives in Lakshadweep are being communalized by a certain sect of people, but that is not the reason. But the Lakshadweep otherwise would become the hub of drug trafficking. And we also know that the drugs contribute around 30% of the Pakistani money spent on anti-India activities in Indian soil. And there are institutional mechanisms, the exchanges, and I have also mentioned about the Jaipur incident of the Pakistani team on 16th October 2000, the Champions Trophy, when 2 of their fast bowlers were sent back by their own confession, the Pakistani High Commission. This is a very interesting case. Pakistan never is always in a denial mode whenever their people are caught. They go out of the way, seeking consular access, extending supports, and so many things. It is for even a common man to understand that they would not normally accept that their own two best fast bowlers were peddling drugs. Because the truth was much more grave than this, so they offered a small branch, olive branch, to save the entire tree. And this is known to everybody. But there was a Aman Ki Asha gang, there were media people, there were other pressure groups, which always used to say Aman Ki Asha, people to people contact, and all sorts of things, which was not desirable in India's interest. They were mollycoddling with Pakistani establishment, and that is also one of the reasons which is borne out by them. And many of them had a lot of clout in the ruling dispensation at that time.
Right. So let me take a pause here and ask Vivekji this question. This is interesting because every chapter, every sort of twist and turn in this book is worth making into a movie, right? It's like a movie script. I mean, when I look at this again, it's pretty much, it's very clear, right? When you probably have a copy of this as well. You look at some of these characters. It's very clear whom we are talking about. It's very, very clear that it's the prime minister of the day and the shadow prime minister, and their intention was from the beginning to dilute the capabilities that Maniji is talking about. I sometimes feel saddened that such a powerful military is tied at its back because of lack of political will and decision making, which is, if you look at Mossad and if you look at Israel, when the new prime minister took over, he actually took more punitive actions than Benjamin Netanyahu, although they were really not seeing eye to eye, right? So that saddens me a little bit. So would you be interested in taking this to the next level, Vivekji? In at least exploring this in a script fashion, because it's so many. This is like almost like a Jack Ryanish type of thing, isn't it? Creating this character of Kalyan. Yeah.
Yeah, when I started reading it, just first few pages, I said, this is written like a screenplay. If not exactly a technical screenplay, but definitely the whole style. And the first thing when I came here, I told Mani sir that your style is, I'm very impressed with your style. And yes, we should talk about this. Why not? Definitely. Let me just complete the entire thing and we must talk about this. Yeah. But yeah, but see, the problem is, whenever in movies, Indian movies, whenever we show raw or intelligence agencies or inside the ministry working, or if there's an insider, they're so superficial and it is like based on their assumptions how things happen. But there is no inside processes. And that's what the beauty of the book is, that it dwells into processes, and it's the processes which make the real story, here. So this is very interesting. Yes, we should talk about it. Yeah.
So, Maniji, let's run down to some questions that we've got from people who are watching, and then one of the things that Kalyan must have faced, and this is again a fictitious character. So I'm just asking you to assume that you've talked to Kalyan and you know what his thinking is, right? What kind of problems must Kalyan have faced while he's going through all of this, right? He must have been haunted. He must have been literally made life hell for him, right? Like, is he hiding somewhere, or is he alive? Is he dead, or what's this Kalyan about? How is he surviving this?
He survived.
Yeah,
and that's it. You see. He was living from day to day life. It was every day was a different day for him.
Yeah.
And how he's picked up, he's sent somewhere, he brings out it, picked up and sent somewhere else. He brings out the result third time. Indeed, there were some good people protecting him, covering him, and all that. But the entire establishment, the powers that be in the establishment, had set upon the government against him. And that's how he still, in spite of that, internal strength, maybe inner strength of that, maybe he was practicing Sanatani and those also empowered. He was from his family was a source of, because basically the communists are also trying to destroy the family system. We all know that, whether it is LGBT or whatever. Here, this also is a very important message that the family roots are well grounded. No challenge is big enough for you. One of the important messages, apart from what the narrative it has come out, you see the family portrayal of Kalyan. Aged parents and a professional wife, 2 bright children and all that. So even the family also, if the support and the mechanism and the quality of family support is there, no challenge is big enough for him. That is one of the biggest takeaways from this.
Absolutely.
So this is how he survives.
Because this is again a segue back to Vivek ji. Vivek ji, I don't know if you've seen this thing on OTT on Amazon called Family Man, in which Manoj Bajpayee really did a good job. I haven't seen the second series yet. I just saw the first one. In which he has a nagging yet supportive wife. He has kids who are very dismissive of him, but they love him. I mean, that character itself is like your typical middle class person who goes through hell at office. Yeah, at the end of the day, but he still has so many responsibilities. His wife is coming and telling him that, look, kal jaake bhaji vaji leke aao, and he's like, what the hell is she talking about? But he still lives that life, right? It's those interesting tidbits that I was like trying to extract from Deception on who this Kalyan is. Kalyan comes home at 10 p.m. and then or 11 p.m. whatever, and his mother, probably 65, 70 years old mother at that time, is still awake for him without, she just wants to know, right? So these are the human stories. These are real stories that happen every day. And you probably have seen it all through the characters that you have tried to depict yourself are regular common people that do uncommon things, spectacular things. And they are the real heroes. And you're documenting most of them. Hopefully more power to you and so many things you're doing. So tell me, what has been your biggest challenge, Vivek ji? I know Maniji's inside stories slowly coming to on the outside via different formats. But what has been your most biggest challenge in this journey of yours?
See, the biggest challenge has been, the thing is, we are so conditioned now, The problem is, it's going to take a lot of time. I'm also a storyteller. Maniji is also a storyteller. All of us are telling stories. Whether somebody is saying it through film, somebody is saying it through their politics, somebody is saying it through their different kinds of works. Everybody is telling some kind of a story and adding on to this long, continuous narrative of the world, so my biggest problem has been that, especially in case of India, it is very difficult for me and my generation to change. Even the people who stand with our narrative, my narrative is the Indian narrative, the Bharati narrative, the Hindu civilizational narrative, everybody knows that. Even people who are volunteers and soldiers of that narrative, even their minds are so conditioned that sometimes they also tend to believe what the other people are saying, what the communist people or the Islamic people are saying, what the corrupt nexus is saying. They also need validation from them. Like this government also, for last 7 years, this government has been there and nobody has got unbelievable majority like they have got. They have been winning elections. They have public support. People still love Modi ji a lot. But despite that, they are also seeking validation from the same people you are fighting. And those people will never ever give you validation, whatever you do. If they will give you validation, they are doing it only to use you, exploit you. They are lying, they are deception people. They are deceiving you. You cannot. I mean, this, even the greatest Lao Tzu has also said this, the art of war also says that, Chanakya also said that, our Vedas say that, Mahabharata says that, Krishna, all the greatest of the people have said that how to treat enemy. There are books about it. In politics, you learn it from life experience. Still, if you want validation from those people, my biggest challenge is that, even the people who are victims have that Stockholm syndrome. And this apologetic mindset is my biggest challenge in making movies, in public lectures, and writing books, or my mass communication with people, because people are conditioned to believe that what they say is correct because they are intellectuals, because they are better storytellers than us. That's it.
And they are resourceful. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of wherewithal to take a few hits.
Oh, yeah.
But the reason why I was not smiling and my smile turned into a laughter at that cynical thought was the question. This is a question for RVS ji, Maniji. The question is Kalyan getting help from BJP? That's why I was looking at it. I'm like, oh my God, what a bomb.
The other fact, see, basically it has come out now, but at that time they were not even aware of the mechanization happening within the government. They were not even aware of it. They were not sensitized to that. So there is a question of BJP supporting them is even other way out of question. And Kalyan is a man of rules. The protagonist is a man of rules. And he himself challenges the proximity of a police officer with leading politicians, and that is also come under there. So certainly Kalyan would not have even taken the help of any other opposite political group if that was the case.
Okay.
So
then the tough question is, so you answered on behalf of Kalyan, but then there is this next question is, why is RVS Mani not talking to Yogi ji? These are questions coming from the internet, guys. So I have to ask them. So I think what he means, or he or she is, why is RVS ji not talking to Yogi Adityanath ji? I think that's what they meant, and explaining to him the journey undertaken by you and by others. Is there any audience that you've even sought or given?
I have not sought an audience. I don't intend to seek an audience with anybody in the political system, for the simple reason, let me make it very clear. The Indian political system, whatever the British India has seeded into us, call it Westministerial or corporate, it has rendered the situation into whatever even the highest man of ethics also will use any such event for his personal political agenda. And in the entire welter of being using it, they may end up losing the truth as a narrative. For me, ekam satyam, vipraha bahudara vadanti. It should not be ekam satyam, vipraha bahulabha bhavanti. It should be vibhudara bhavanti.
I know
different people should not make money out of it.
I know we are all sticklers for time, so I'm just going to spill over for 10 more minutes. But there are two interesting questions for Vivek ji also. And again, don't laugh, Vivek ji. Why is big business not helping Vivek Agnihotri?
See, there is an honest answer to that. See, it's not about helping. It's about building an ecosystem. You don't help. When you have an ecosystem, everybody is helped by everybody. It's like a forest, forest, you have an ecosystem. And every species, every plant, every tree, every blade is helping each other create. And there is a oneness in that. Communist people Islamic people have been able to do it very, very well. Congress in India knew exactly how to do that. And the moment they think that somebody is of any value, little value to the ecosystem, or taking our ideology forward, or our vested interests forward, then they will go out of their way to help those people. And which is why you will see that people who make anti-India, anti-Hindu kind of films generally get money without any problem, and they make huge, big films. And in last 5 years, somebody was telling me yesterday that some 10 or 12 projects on Ramayana and Mahabharat were announced, but they couldn't even start because they were nobody was willing to finance them. In a country where every second person says Jai Shri Ram, it's not possible to sell that kind of film. I can't believe it. Anyways, so the problem is, like I said, that if you type Jesus on YouTube, you will find hundreds of documentaries and films on Jesus Christ. On Islamic traditions and Islamic belief, you will find so many documentaries and books and everything, On communism, you will find thousands of things. But when you say Hinduism or Hindu history, what you find is monkey god, and that why Hindus give milk to stones and stuff like that, and about superstition. It's true. You can type Hindu history, and that's what you will find. So I said, let's make something on Hindu civilization. But the problem is that all these OTT platforms don't want to do that. And we have not been, despite being there for 7 years, we have not been able to create ecosystem. Let me make it clear for once and all. Ecosystem does not mean creating a group of corrupt people. It does not mean you are creating a group of sycophants. It means an ecosystem which creates so many products that it takes your philosophy, ideology, your work forward. Like RSS does. RSS has a strong ecosystem made up of their own volunteers. They take the work forward. They actually do the work on the ground. But here, despite being in majority, I don't think that this government was ever interested in creating an ecosystem. And because they have not empowered people to help each other, which is why Reliance, such a Hindu owners, means such traditional Hindu owners. Jio Entertainment is the largest entertainment company in India, but have not been able to produce even one film which is helping the ecosystem. And in fact, they are producing films which help the other ecosystem. This is another tragedy. I guarantee Doordarshan must have commissioned more programs which help the other ecosystem than the programs. Why? All these Ramayana Mahabharats were made in Congress's tenure. Let's not forget that. Chanakya and Shiva and all those series were made during Congresses. Means they were more visionary.
Yeah.
They created a better ecosystem. So that's the problem,
My appeal, I'm appealing to businessmen of all hues, people who have savings that they can live off of. You're happy, you're satisfied, there's trupti in you. Instead of building temples, build books, build content, help Vivek Agnihotri bring spectacular content. And I think the last question for you, Vivek ji, is almost one more last question for RVS ji. I know we are running out of time here. Is why not make a movie on Kalyan and make him sexy? This is another question from a live audience. That is a question for Vivek Agnihotri. Kind of make him like a spy, sort of embedded, who has, Shikadari spy. Who knows? What I don't know.
Yeah, we should. In fact, I was reading and I was thinking that yes, this character is very interesting and it can be run into a series. Like part 1, part 2, part 3. You have many. But then the thing is,
Yeah.
बोलिए प्रमोद जी.
नहीं मैं ये कह रहा था कि I saw some cool pictures, some memes come up of this Puri based Brahmanas who are like really well built. Okay, these guys are going to Hanuman Vyayamshala. They look like Pahalwans, right? And somebody was saying, this is also Shikadari, this is also Gadadhari, something like that, right? Those guys were really well built, muscular, and they're all pulling the chariots and doing all traditional Vidhi Vidhanam and all that. But they're all really chiseled. And so I was like, maybe these guys are really seeing too many films these days. But last question for RVS ji. is there a deep state that protects Kalyan? So forget the politics, forget the businessman, forget the bureaucracy, but is there still a group of patriots, like what it's called in America, right? Deep state that is well endowed. They are able to protect you, at least physically, right? So is there a deep state that protects Kalyan?
I can't take this question because there was no such feeling
Oh, okay.
felt by Kalyan that there could be a deep state. From the simple narrative of the fiction, Kalyan doesn't seem to get protection excepting from that Dhananjay, who was to him, he was reporting. At that time, he did get protection, but beyond that, there is no such exposure protecting Kalyan.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. My request is, Vivekji, if you have book on your handy, because there's a light falling on it, Deception. Oh, there it is. The book launch. We are doing this today. Everybody go buy it, read it. Hopefully, it will take many avatars, and it will hopefully be made into a movie very soon with other parts coming in. Maybe a web series. Who knows? For all you people out there, please buy Deception. It's a first publication by True My dear friend Anand Srivastav has braved it by publishing this account of Kalyan. And, kudos to the effort, kudos to the editing staff, all the team that got involved in this. Thank you, Maniji. Any last words, any parting sort of comments you wish to make on the journey you've made?
See, basically, my first book also had a lot of problems. I was running around with script with HarperCollins and Amazon, The Right, and few others. But Vitasta took it up. And Vitasta is a name of Sharda, Saraswati, and a river flows through it. So I said that this is where I could get it. And she did it, Renu Kola wrote it. So from then onwards, I found that the Hindu publication ecosystem we were talking about just a few minutes back is absolutely lacking. So that is also one of the reasons I chose Chronicle, because Chronicle, in my knowledge, will be only the third such large publication. And I wish Chronicle to come with more and more. It's a very noble effort from the publishers that they are trying to set up an ecosystem for the international audience. And I wish more and more success for them. From my side also, I will try to give maximum opportunities with such similar works. Ganesha Icha, I intend to.
Thank you. And please convey our regards to Kalyan. Thank you, Vivekji, for a lively discussion as always.
Thank you.
Very good. My best of luck for Kashmir Files, and hopefully I'll see you very soon in Houston.
And I would also like to congratulate and thank actually Anant Srivastav and Chronicle for doing this. We need this. This is what I meant. This is creating of an ecosystem. It's very good effort, and please publish good books. And if we can help in any way, we are always there. Thank you. Namaskar. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Namaste. Jai Hind.
Namaste.
Jai Hind.